Alright, in this video we're going to be doing the second type of glove from this pattern. That is the fingerless gloves with individual finger gussets in it. Now, this one I've also added a mitten flap to it to make it into a convertible mitten, and we'll get to that in a later video. For this video we're just going to focus on knitting the actual glove and the finger gussets. So let's get started here. Now, in this pattern, this glove is done the exact same way as our previous one, without the individual gussets, with just the open mitt here at the top. So up until this point, the pattern has been exactly the same as this one. So if you would like a tutorial on how to get this far, check out my previous video with the fingerless mitt. So we are to the point in the glove now where it starts to differ a little bit. We have knitted our rib section, we've made our extra stitches for our thumb gusset, and we've knitted until we get to the length of our hand here. Our instructions tell us that in our last round, when we get to the desired length of the glove, in this last round we stop before we knit all of the stitches on the last needle. We leave the last 6 stitches unworked here. And we are going to put these stitches onto a scrap piece of yarn. So let me grab a scrap piece of yarn here. So this is basically the same way that we did the thumb. When we were done making the extra stitches for the thumb, we slipped those off onto a scrap piece of yarn. We're going to do the same here as well. And our pattern tells us that we're going to do, we're going to do these last 6 stitches. So we'll slip these off. And then we're going to take the first 5 stitches off of the next needle. So we're putting 11 stitches total onto this. There. And that sets aside our stitches for our little finger. Then we're going to continue knitting make sure to keep those stitches on there. We're just going to continue knitting for 3 more rows. So we just continue knitting around in stockinette stitch. Alright, so we're finishing up the 3rd round here. So here's what we have. There's the body of the glove, we got our gusset for our thumb, and we've got a gusset here for our little finger. So the first actual finger we're going to start working on here is the ring finger. To do this, we're going to knit the first 5 stitches of this round. And then we're going to cast on a stitch. And how we do this to cast on, get these extra needles out of the way here. I take my working yarn and kind of make a loop around my fingers with it. Then slide that loop onto the needle and tighten it up. And there's my extra stitch. So let me take that off and show you again one more time. I hold onto the yarn and kind of wrap my fingers around to make a loop, and then stick that loop on and tighten it up. to get that extra stitch. Okay. Then we take the next few stitches and we're going to take another piece of scrap yarn here. Put it on a needle. Oops. And we're going to slip the next few stitches. I think it says 20 stitches, so there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there's our 20 stitches onto a scrap piece of yarn. Get it off my needle, there we go. And that leaves us 6 stitches left on the needle. So we have those original first 5 stitches plus the one we added, which is 6, and then we've got 6 more for a total of 12 stitches for the width of the finger. Okay, now we are going to just simply knit these stitches in the round, and I find it helpful, instead of using just the 2 needles like this, I find it helpful to add a 3rd needle to work around when doing this. So what I like to do is kind of just split these stitches up and put 4 stitches on each needle. So I'm going to go ahead and take the 2 off of that first one and then knit 2 off of this last needle here. So there I have my 3 needles with 4 stitches on each. I'll pick up my 4th and I'll just continue knitting. So we're going to knit this. It tells you a certain number of rounds, or you can just knit it until you have the length that you want. Just put the glove on, and if you think the finger is long enough, then you can go ahead and bind off. And we're going to bind off in the exact same way that we bound off the thumb in the previous video. So if you want to check that out to show you how to do that loose, stretchy bind off for the thumb. So I'm going to work on this, and when I'm done with this finger, I will show you the next one in the pattern, just because it has a little trickiness to it too. Once you get that, then you know how to finish the rest of the glove. So I'll meet you back here as soon as I've finished the ring finger. So the way we're going to do this next finger is we're going to pick up stitches off of this scrap yarn. So we're going to take our first 5, and I like to split these up amongst 4 or 3 different needles here. So there's 5 stitches, and then we're going to take the last 5 off of this. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll start right here. Pick up that one. And then our last 2 sometimes can be a little hard to see. They kind of pull tight. If you can see that in here. So sometimes they're a little hard to pick up. They just look for where your scrap yarn goes through. And it's helpful to use a piece of scrap yarn that's a different color than the yarn that you're knitting with. There's 1 and 2. And then I'm just going to pull this yarn out, not out of these other 10 stitches that are here, just out of the ones I picked up. So I'm going to pull it out this way and leave those other stitches on, and then come around here and pull it out of these stitches. So we have our middle finger stitches, and then our index finger stitches will be left right here. Then we are going to reattach our yarn. So pick up your ball of working yarn. I'm going to start here where I first picked up those stitches. Loop my yarn around. I like to pull a little bit of a tail so I have something to weave in afterward. Make that first stitch. And then we're going to continue knitting around. Now when we come to our last needle here, we only have 2 stitches on this needle. And each of our fingers is going to be 12 stitches wide. We've got 5 on the first, 5 on the second, and 2 on the last. So we need 2 more stitches. So what we're going to do is just like we did when we knitted the thumb in our previous video of the fingerless mitt, we're going to pick up 2 stitches out of the side of this previous finger that we just knit. So I'm going to stick my needle through one of the stitches on the side, wrap it around, and pull up a stitch. And then I'm going to go to the other side of the gap and do the same thing. And then we just continue knitting around all of these stitches until we've got our desired length. And then we'll bind off in the same stretchy bind off that we've been doing at the end of each finger. The index finger in this glove is done the exact same way. You basically just pick up the rest of the stitches that are on your scrap yarn and pick up 2 stitches out of the edge of the previous finger that you just knit, which would be this one that I'm working on now. Once you've done that and you've knit around and bound off, then you're going to go pick up the stitches from the scrap yarn that is holding the little finger stitches, these over here, and you'll do the same thing. You'll pick those stitches up, you'll pick up a couple stitches out of the side of the finger next to it, knit that for so long, and then you'll do the same thing with the thumb, like we did before. You'll pick up those stitches, grab a couple out of the edge of the body of the glove, and knit your thumb. And then once you have bound off each one and woven in your ends, you will have something that looks like this. So there you go.